They gave me a number before they gave me a cell. Unit KS77841. That was what the Vethran intake processor printed on the tag they bolted to my wrist the night they pulled me out of Habitat Callaway Dorn. I was 9 years old. The bolt went through the skin. The processor did not slow down to wait for me to stop screaming. I learned later that this was standard intake procedure for every human designated as an unregistered biological unit under Vethran collective statutes. Unregistered, as though we had simply failed to file the correct documentation, as though the fault was an administrative oversight on our end, and the processing camps were a reasonable corrective measure. I escaped when I was 14. I will not spend words on how. It cost 2 people everything they had, and I do not spend their names on strangers. What matters is that I reached the traverse corridor, and I reached a human vessel, and 22 years later, I stood on the ground of Kethara Station, with a weapon in my hands, and a list of 38,204 names on a data slab strapped to my forearm. The Harrow Compact had been in transit for 19 days, 760 warships. I know people expect a number like that to feel enormous, to feel like thunder moving through space. It does not feel like thunder. It feels like arithmetic. The Vethran Collective had operated 19 processing installations and 31 associated transit nodes across the Kethara belt. The Harrow Compact had a ship for each one, and ships left over, and the math was not complicated. I was not on a ship. I had asked to be on the ground element, and Commander Ash Doral had looked at my file for a long time before she approved the request. She did not ask why. She is a careful officer, and she understood why. Kethara Station was the largest of the 19, the original intake hub, the one with the registry vault. My team breached the outer ring at 0614 local. 8 soldiers. We moved through processing corridors that smelled of recycled atmosphere, and something underneath that. Something I remembered from 22 years ago, a smell without a name that my body recognized before my mind did. I kept moving. There is a thing you learn in 22 years of groundwork, which is that your body will carry you through the places your mind would stop. You let it. You stay behind your eyes, and let the rest of you work. The Vethran Station personnel had attempted to seal the interior bulkheads. This was, as a defensive measure, insufficient. My team does not negotiate with bulkheads. We found the registry vault on sublevel 4. The Vethran data custodian inside it had barricaded the door with a storage rack, and was attempting to wipe the primary archive when Corporal Wren cut through the lock plate. The custodian was a senior administrator, to judge by the rank insignia, a small, pale creature with 3-fingered hands, and the particular stillness of something that has spent decades believing it was untouchable. It looked at us. Then it looked at the partial wipe progress on its terminal, and seemed to calculate whether to keep trying. "Step away from the terminal," I said. It did not step away. I crossed the room in 4 steps, moved it away from the terminal by the expedient of lifting it by its collar assembly, and set it against the far wall. It made sounds. I did not pay attention to the sounds. I was looking at the terminal. The wipe had reached 11%. 89% of the archive remained intact. Outside, through the station's hull, I could hear the Harrow Compact working. Not sound exactly. Vibration. The station shook in intervals, each one a precise, deliberate impact. Another Vethran installation going dark. The Compact had been broadcasting the sequence on open galactic frequency since the operation began. Every installation dismantled, named, time-stamped. Every human transit node reopened. Clean, methodical, organized at scale. Working through the list the way you work through a list. Item by item. Without commentary, without anger. Because anger is a fire, and fire is wasteful. And what we had was not anger. What we had was arithmetic. I pulled the archive onto the data slab on my forearm. 38,204 unit termination notices. Each one with a unit number. Each one with a date. Each one with a Vethran collective processing notation that described the cause in 8 characters of administrative shorthand. Resource depletion, structural failure, non-compliance incident. 8 characters for a human life. They had been very efficient. The data slab also contained a second file, which my team had compiled over the preceding 11 months. It cross-referenced every unit number in the Vethran archive against the human settlement records from the Kethara belt, the intake logs from Habitat Callaway Dorn, The passenger manifests from 4 border transports. The census rolls from 6 agricultural stations. The work had taken 11 months because the Veteran Collective had been careful to obscure the connection between their unit numbering system and any external human identifier. They had not been careful enough. Blew behind every unit number in the archive, a name. I looked at the custodian. It had stopped making sounds. It was watching me with the particular attention of something that has begun to understand that it has miscalculated the situation it is in. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. I held up the data slab. It said nothing. "These are your records," I said. 38,204 unit termination notices. Your numbers, your dates, your notations. I turned the slab so it could see the screen, and behind each one, a name. Our records. The station shook again. Sublevel 4 groaned once and steadied. "I am going to read them," I said. "All of them. On your open frequency, so that every collective installation in the Kethara belt hears them, while the compact takes those installations apart. And when I am finished, I am going to walk out of this room and leave you here with the archive running on your own terminal, so that you can listen to it as long as you choose to, or until the collective decides what to do with an administrator who failed to complete a wipe on the registry vault." I turned to the terminal. I opened the broadcast interface. I set the frequency to the Veteran Collective's full internal network. All channels, all installations, all transit nodes, all administrative hubs across the Kethara belt. I opened the first entry. UTN-001. Callaway Dorn Intake Log Cross-Reference. Merritt Osse, 34 years old, agricultural technician, registered resident of Habitat Callaway Dorn for 11 years prior to extraction. Notation: resource depletion. I read the name. I read the age. I read the occupation. I did not read the notation. The notation was not relevant. UTN-002. Callaway Dorn Intake Log Cross-Reference. Pale Osse, 31 years old, environmental systems operator. UTN-003. Sella Doane, 58 years old. I read them the way you read a list. One at a time, without stopping, without explaining, because they did not require explanation. They required saying. The Veteran Collective had spent 14 years reducing these people to 8-character notations, and what I was doing was the opposite of that, and it was the only opposite of that which was available to me. The station shook at intervals, each interval, another installation. When I reached UTN 38 Stoddard 190, my voice had been going for a long time. My team stood around me in the vault, weapons at their sides, and none of them moved. Corporal Wren had her eyes closed. I do not know what she was thinking. I kept reading. UTN 38,203. Callaway Dorn Intake Log Cross-Reference. Yusin Ven, 31 years old, Habitat Maintenance Supervisor. Notation: non-compliance incident. I stopped on that one for a second. 1 second. Then I read the next one. UTN 387204. Callaway Dorn Intake Log Cross-Reference. Dava Ven, 9 years old, dependent of KS 7840. Notation: resource depletion. I closed the broadcast channel. My wrist had the scar where unit KS 7841 had been bolted through the skin. I have had it for 27 years. The doctors on the rescue vessel offered to remove it. I declined. Some things you carry because they are yours. I set the archive to loop on the Veteran terminal and walked to the door. The custodian was still against the wall, still watching. It had not moved in several hours. I stopped in the doorway. "The Harrow Compact will complete its operation in approximately 4 hours," I said. "After that, the Kethara belt will be a human transit corridor. Your installations will be logged as dismantled. Your termination notices will be part of the public galactic record, with names appended." I looked at it for a moment. "You are the one thing we are leaving intact." I walked out of the vault and did not look back. The station shook once more, and then it was quiet. Outside, through the breach point, the sky over Kethar Station was the same pale amber it had been when the Veteran Collective's intake processor had bolted a tag through a 9-year-old's wrist. The sky did not know the difference. It was just sky. Light fell the same way it always had. We had filed one notice in return. It contained 38,204 names. That was the whole of it. That was the arithmetic.